This is our very first More to Life, More to Living. We like to say More to Living by More to Life. Um, this is a table talk. This is a conversation with an incredible clinician, a human being. She is a project manager, director of our organization, which is in its 21st year of service. My name is Dr. Brook Bello. And my doctorate comes from pastoral clinical therapy. So I went to seminary, actually, FYI disclaimer. But we're really excited to be here. We have Diego Garcia in the background, a young man of honor helping us out, who is my new executive assistant, and which is really powerful. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I think Tenille and I always have just the most amazing conversations, tear-jerking conversations, difficult conversations, joyful conversations, the kind of stuff that really helps us express the work of dealing with individuals who have been repeatedly raped, exploited, trafficked, tortured, beaten, and working with our team, our staff that is dealing with that every day, some who have survived it. And so I think this is a conversation, and we want to be as natural as possible, like if we're just on the phone, just chopping it up. And so we're going to try to pretend we're not recording this for all of you. But I think one of the things that we talked about recently, Tenille, is just for an organization this is coming into its 22nd year, first 2 years not incorporated, and looking at the trajectory and the future of how to serve victims with all the challenges in the world today, what we've done the past 22 years, and some of the things that we're seeing, that you're seeing in the day-to-day work that cause pause, that are shocking. And so, just share whatever you want that comes to mind about a situation in court without mentioning names, about compassion fatigue of staff, anything that you think is riveting and important in terms of what we do and how we serve. And just share anything related to any of that.
First, I want to say thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Yes, we do have great conversations, and I'm hoping we're able to capture that here this time. What I've seen just, in the years that I've been here with More to Life, the age is really getting, the age of victims that are not only being sexually raped, sexually, trafficked, is significantly decreasing. Years ago, our common mentee was 17, 15. We're looking at 9 years old now, to an average age of about 12. It's definitely becoming more, I think our youth are becoming desensitized to sharing pictures as being normal in school, not taking it necessarily the majority of the youth, I would say.
Let's go ahead and say sharing nude pictures of themselves as baby girls.
They don't see themselves as baby girls. Yes, they are absolutely babies. I mean, a 9-year-old is a baby. A youth in an elementary school is a baby. I mean, a 17-year-old is a baby. What do we know at 17? There's a beauty in being free of worry, free of just, that doesn't happen to me. There's such a beauty in that innocence, right? And unfortunately, many times that's what lands them in these situations. It's the trusting everyone sometimes, and sharing too much, creating a relationship with an individual, and the individual over time asking them for pictures, and their innocence, believing those pictures are just for that one individual, and it gets more complex as over time they realize it. But by the time they realize it, it's just too late. So
yeah, I think what's shocking to me is that in the 22 years and being, a human trafficking champion, because I was a survivor, and I don't use that word anymore, victim to survivor, survivor to thriver, thriver to champion, I've always seen victims that were infants. and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, but you wouldn't necessarily see it unless you were deeply doing the work or were privy to certain things that come in from um, the Homeland Security or the FBI or Department of Children and Families or Child Welfare in different states. It's always been that infants and babies were trafficked, exploited, and raped um,
Mhm,
in this country and around the world. But it's becoming, it seems like a commonplace, and
mhm,
it's touching individuals and families that are not only children from foster care, or not only children that might be coming from fatherless homes or from families that are in a certain type of poverty. And I always, we talk about financial poverty. A phrase I like to coin, and I coined it some years ago, is emotional poverty. And so, and some of the violence is is darker. It's always been torturous and darker, but certain things you see are coming across the desk are really profound. When we think of the victim, in 2024 that was repeatedly raped, trafficked, and dismembered, this teen girl, and going to court and working with her family. It's this buffeting of the minds and hearts of young people. Exactly what you said, Tenille. If a 9-year-old baby girl thinks it's normal to take a picture of her baby precious body and send that most of the time to someone she doesn't know because she's utilizing a gaming platform or social media, perhaps without her parents' permission, to someone she thinks is her age, a friend, a boy, not realizing that it's a pervert, a pedophile, um, is shocking. And that's what's frightening to me. And I know that's what's frightening to you, the normalization of it and the fact that people don't seem to be as outraged in looking at the type of violence and what it actually does to someone's heart and mind. And the younger you are, the longer and deeper sometimes it stays in the psychoses of your heart and your mind, in the process of the building of your identity and your behavior. But also, when it's a family member, the data shows that it's like an umpteenth exponentially more difficult for that person to ever trust again, because the very uncle, brother, father is the one that should love you. I think, you know, when a victim comes across our desk at MTL and they're really, regardless of their age, let's say they're 9 to 13, and we're getting a referral in and you're able to do assessment, what's the first process of how you cope with the daily sort of just issues of having to hear day in and day out of these incredible monstrosities and torture? What are you thinking in that moment? And then how do you dive into, okay, I have to do something. And my next question is going to be, after that, how do you take care of yourself? But
So, I have a strong I have I think we all do at Motor Life, More to Living. I think we have to do the work we do, have a strong resilience, but,
Mhm.
uh, the work I do is so empowering. It's I don't, what you would think would get me tired that I would need self-care from, it's not the youth. The youth are so resilient, so full of life, so full of future, so full of hope. And that's what I tune into. And that's what I we focus at More to Life is tuning into their beauty, is tuning into their inner beauty. And instead of there are times we have to talk about the hard. We need to uncover that. We need to get that out so it later doesn't develop into anxiety, depression. But um
Schizoaffective disorder, dual personality disorder,
right, all that,
uh,
right.
there's PTSD almost always. There's so much
Oh,
more.
there's so much more, but to make that initial relationship, I think what's unique about the work we do is um we come at them just trying to build a relationship. Like you said earlier, that's so powerful is they they have been taught not to trust, right? Sometimes from infancy, sometimes later on, but adults aren't safe. So I'm no different, and neither is any of our staff at first meet and greet. And I don't force it. It's their pace. And in allowing that pace to happen and allowing them to control the pace and to control our relationship, uh, there
Yeah.
is healing, there is therapy in that, because we're
Mhm.
giving them control back to a life that they had lost control of while being trafficked or being raped. So I don't, I'm not one that needs too much self-care, because it's almost like my work is my self-care. I feel so empowered. I really celebrate the minuscule steps that they make, that even if it's just showing up, even if it's being able to decide what do they want, water or a
But
Sprite, just
I'm gonna push back and interject a little bit because when it's coming across your desk first, you haven't met the youth yet.
oh,
You're
you're
just
saying without even meeting the youth.
haven't
Okay.
met 'em. It's just another which everything you said is completely on point. But before you have an opportunity to meet this precious human being, you're just reading what we know at that point before any type of assessment. We have some bullet facts about their life, about the trauma they suffered, about the crimes committed against them. And when you're looking at that document, give everyone an idea what that means when we open up a document, when we open up an email, encrypted, and now we're reading the crimes against a child that we're about to meet.
Um, I get empowered. It's heartbreaking, obviously, but I don't let myself fall into the pit of it and the darkness of it, because I need to be the strength at that moment. Um,
Mhm.
so I know that someone's, even though it's facts, right? What's being presented to us on our desk in that referral or in that staffing. I don't want to go in with too much of a preconceived conception of that individual. They are not they are not victim. They are victims, but I will not see them as victims. I will see them as beautiful human beings. So these are facts.
Well, they're
These are
victims, and you'll see them as victims, but you won't see them as victims in terms of their character and personality, but victims of a crime, and we can talk about that.
right. So I just take it as facts. I take it as, okay, this person has, has experience. There obviously all the referrals that we receive are heavy. We are
Yeah.
not a community to receive high profile, high crisis cases only, and
Yeah, they're urgent.
they're
Mhm.
all urgent. And so I just, sometimes I have to stop and pray a second and breathe through it. If it's
So
someone who's so
that's what
very
I'm getting at. That's what I'm
okay,
getting at because the and your beautiful Cuban background probably gives you, a bit of chutzpah, a bit of strength, a bit of I don't know, it's from your mom or your dad or your family, but something that, "Look, I can't let this take me out today.
uh,
This is, the 700th referral I've seen or story I've heard all year, and I can't if this takes me out, I can't do the work." And so I think for the public, there's this idea where you can create a layer of boundary and buffeting, but it's not affecting you because you're doing that and because you've practiced and learned to do that because you had to do that.
right.
But
And this is a
it doesn't
calling. This is definitely a
yeah.
call. This is a calling. This is not someone that you can just meets credentials, and this is beyond your resume. This is beyond your qualifications. This is, you have to have a passion to make a change in this world of human trafficking. And um, the team members or the staff,
Mhm.
just the community we serve, that I see that, you know, don't last is understandable, and it's, they get burnt out and they question their passion. Um, so yeah, when I received that, I guess it is some of my background, some of my Cuban heritage, and just, the resiliency,
And
the
and
Miami in me, and yeah, and just
and you as a
let's
human
do
being
it.
as well, all the thing even my background, where I grew up, a all that my ethnicity and my hybrid of ethnicities, I'm so many different things, it creates a part of of who we are to be able to have stick to itiveness and do certain things in a protective layer. But I think you learn that over time because you have to pull back from history. It's almost like a doctor, medical doctor, when you're in med school and you're doing your residency, some people when they first see blood or first have to cut into like a heart
Mhm.
organ that is for practice, if you will, they vomit and they freak out and they can't take it and they get dizzy. And eventually
Mhm.
they can do it.
Right,
The sight of blood doesn't make them faint.
right.
And I think for me, the sight of the blood of victims sometimes still makes me faint. Um, I still get dizzy. So then I have to stop and pray. Um, or I have to do self talk. Before I would have just fainted. Now sometimes I feel faint depending on my day or that week. And I don't, but I could if I let myself. And I
Mhm.
think that what I want for people to understand what it takes for warriors like you, our team, to do this day in out and some of the other organizations that we love and admire in this exacerbation of more profound violence that we're seeing at higher numbers on younger and younger and younger and younger human beings, younger children, 1 years old, 2 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10, 11, 12. And you're right. A lot of the kids, when you talked about 17, I need for people to just take a break and realize that most 17-year victims were molested or raped when they were little. And so while they might appear 17, 17 is still a baby in my book, but that 17 is like a 10-year-old or 11-year-old in certain ways emotionally because of the impact of the violence they suffered. And what would you say in terms of, as a clinician, when we think about compassion fatigue and self-care and what it actually takes to do this work, what would you want for individuals to know why organizations like ours are so needed in the hopes of educating to hopefully reduce it so much to get to a point where we always say work ourselves out of a job to where we're not needed. But even if we weren't needed for victims, we'd still be needed for this sort of reciprocity of services to victims of all ages that are walking around the earth that haven't healed yet, that stuff their exploitation or rape in a closet and may look successful on the outside, but are crashing and burning because they have substance abuse issues, dealing with alcoholism,
Yeah.
failed marriages. They have womb health issues. They don't realize it might be related to prior trauma. So they have a hard time having children, which creates other trauma. Repeated marriages sometimes, just a difficult time relationally. Maybe they're workaholics, which is something I went through. Um, I think, what would you say, Tinil, about how important the work that you do is, not just for victims, but for team and for community around and if you had a sore thumb, if there was something that was most important that you were to tell the public right now about this work, what would it be? And this relates to what I said, those who provide that care.
What I say often is when I'm talking about, this and it's, you see people like, oh, I can't hear this, or
Mm,
somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to, we got to do this work. These are human beings that either a product of their environment
mhm,
or are a victim of being groomed, or even if we're in a
mm,
point in society that they're almost self-grooming. They're almost saying it's okay to share a picture. Everybody does it. So they're falling into the trap almost on their own. Um, what I would say is, if you have the passion and you have that thick skin and you have the ability to see, I will say what gets me through it, I focus naturally, um, on the positive. I have to. There are times that I get, you pour so much into a human being and you see them grow, and you have to remember sometimes relapse will happen, and that's okay. It's part of their journey, and it's not okay, and we don't want that, but God has a story for them, and as much as I want to write it for him, I can't, and we're seed planters. So my goal is to plant that seed and be that safe person that no matter where they are, if they're on the run, that they can reach out to me and just check in. Let me know you're okay. Um, that no matter what happens, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be a safe space. So that's where I get my strength from when I start feeling maybe, a little bit burnt, a little compassion fatigue. Um, is there's so much work to be done. There's so much work to be done. But right now, it's this person, this group, this organization. We're doing such great things, and then the youth we're working with are spreading it as well
Mhm.
within their friend group, within their, you know,
Yeah.
school. They're doing the work that we've taught them. They're spreading it. So it's becoming layered. It's spreading. There's a
Yeah,
lot
and I
more
think
awareness.
and there's this other piece too. I think that to your point, I think and I've heard you say this before, I think we've said it at our team meetings. When a young girl comes in, she's 9, she's 11, she's 12, she's 14, and we look at her history and she begins to or he too, but they begin to open up. Today we're gonna focus on girls. We'll have another conversation about boys. But we're seeing that her first she was molested and then she was raped. So her young body was pillaged by a grown man, shattering her whole history, and then repeatedly so and sold. I talked to someone who was trafficked by a parent from and we've rescued girls that were trafficked by parents from 2, 3, 4 years old all the way to teens, 16, 17. And that's all they've known. We get their history, they come into the office. The first thing we know is that they haven't discovered their real identity. They don't know who they are because they came to us because maybe they're um, picked up by the Department of Juvenile Justice. They got away from that trafficker. Maybe there was a bus and they were rescued, or maybe they ran away, or somehow they got away from those traffickers or from that family because they were removed, but their story isn't fully known. Depending on the diversion program we're doing, they're out of uh, that committed program and we're beginning to provide care. And they see the history, they know we know some of the history, but they know that they still have secrets. They're too ashamed, too embarrassed to share, just as I was, everything that happened. Because some of it, as bad as all of it is, there's certain things they think they don't even want to repeat. To assist someone in building a life back after that takes a special kind of human being. And so I applaud our team at MTL and I applaud you. But I want for individuals to understand, why organizations like ours need to be funded, why staff need to be supported and renewed, why victims coming out are growing to be survivors and thrivers and champions, and they need to discover life and financial literacy and come out of a FAR score of 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 in depression and anxiety and go down to a 1 or 2 where they're not dealing with depression and anxiety in the same way. And there's this high number of those that have the propensity to become violators at certain points on some level because of this repeated abuse. Um, but just switching gears a little bit, there's something I know you're really excited about. And there was a situation recently, without naming where, what city or town. Tell me about Options Court and the hard work when you're looking at victims who have a charge or have a challenge. They're survivors of exploitation, and there's this lack of compassion or understanding of the pain they're going through. And then what we're able to do in option courts that changes their life in that watershed milestone moment that we have something to build on with them from that moment.
Yeah. So Options Court started off, it originally, started in one county and wanted to be replicated in our current in one of our other counties that we serve. And the judge and I went in together and it was like, okay, let's see, what more to life can let's try to create more of a therapeutic environment. So we went in as more to life, and this one judge who was extremely trauma informed and a heart of gold and a passion to make change these youth's future instead of repetitive DJJ, detention center, probation violations, charges. How can we stop this?
Mhm.
So, we, it has turned into, I could talk about this for hours, but to just really keep it short, what it has eventually turned into in 2 years is not only the beauty in this options court is that we give these youth voices. What do you need to stop running? What do you need to stop using? What do you need to go to school? Instead of, you didn't go to school, you violated probation, back to DJJ for 21 days. How can this community serve you so you can have a chance and have the tools you need? Because it's likely very often not coming from home,
Let me
So,
interject so that Tino can explain a little more about options court and something that recently happened with attorneys. Is that often victims are rescued or recovered and out of a trafficking situation, but sometimes still in a damaging situation. But because of substance abuse issues, because of running away, because of maybe stealing at a store, tardiness, or not going to school at all, or truancy, they're getting pinged with charges from the juvenile justice system. But that's not dealing with the fact that they were just raped 3 times, or gang raped, or
mhm,
repeatedly raped and trafficked,
right.
injected with drugs. Sometimes the courts were just dealing with, and prosecutors were just dealing with, this little juvenile crime and no compassion on this youth being a profound tortured victim. And so we've gone in and mitigated that, not just in 2 years, because for option courts, we had a diversion program in
Mhm.
several other counties for many years. But go ahead and finish talking about recent things.
Yeah, unfortunately, the court staff, attorneys and the staff that are in there can get desensitized to them being a case number, and they're not. They're human beings. They are our future. When you talk about funding, um, there's people that, well, how's this going to help our world, our community? How is it going to help? We're gonna stop this from continuing generation after generation. We're going to end it here with this youth so that when they start a family, they get to have an education. They can make something. They are something, not just that's all they know. So,
Mhm.
um, we've had instances where, more recent that, we the attorneys do not want to spend as much time in these courts as is necessary
To
for
hear
this
the
therapeutic.
stories that victims are able to share and be heard,
Right,
sometimes for the first time, with
right.
professionals and leaders around.
Right. So when a youth goes for a hearing, it's
Mhm.
2 minutes. Judge has 5-page docket. There's state attorney, there's, there's a whole bunch of people that she or he, the judge, cannot give that youth the time that they need to, what's going on? I want to know more about you. So these high risk youth, and many of them come from truancy because, um, when
Mm.
you're running, right, or you're in the life, you're not attending school.
We
So
call it in
she's
the death, but yeah.
right. So when she's able to pick them and put them in options court. And we've actually gotten others from other counties because they've heard the success of it. And
What's the
um,
percentage of the success we've had? Can you give me some numbers?
yes, 75 when we started, it was almost 100% detention. You violate probation, you go to detention. That was just a cycle. And we have been able to drop that by 75%. Um,
Only 25% now.
and the 25%, just to say, it's because they're newer. So they're newer to the program, right? So they're getting into, understanding. It's very weird for them that a judge and the community's listening to them. Like, my voice matters. Oh, your
No,
voice
that's right.
matters.
Wow, and
If
what are the other numbers?
So we're at 82%. We've been able to stop from running.
That's so
Um,
powerful.
it is so powerful. It
Because
is
within
just
the first
so
40 hours of someone running, sometimes they may not come back, or that's when some type of sexual assault or precipitation or indoctrination into exploitation takes place.
right? And sometimes we can make it so complicated, right? Like, well, I can't get them to stop running. I hear from case managers, JPOs, probation officers,
Mhm.
like sometimes attorneys, and it's like, well, have you asked why? Have you taken? Well, that's not my job. Okay, well,
Come on.
yeah. So it's we need, that's what we do. That's what More to Life does at Options Court, at this court, and even with our youth in general. Is
Mhm.
why, why?
So
Um,
listening is
Listening is the healing, is the beginning of the healing, is creating a relationship of trust. Because initially they're not going to trust, they don't trust. So it's proving time and time again through persistency, through consistency, through respect, that if you're not ready to talk, that's okay. I validate your voice. What would you like to do right now? So many of them, when they initially show up, they're
mm,
very quiet, nervous, do not want to be there. They're in a court environment. It is in the courtroom. The judge does come down from her podium, and she, sits, eye to eye with them, and it's just basically the energy being sent, and words many times is, your voice matters and we want to hear it.
that's powerful. I think that's so powerful. And you said something earlier, about how it affects community and that, we think about the posterity of a family, of a community or a nation. You said they're our future. This is so important because you have close to 40 million individuals, children that are abused in the United States, and a high propensity of them are victims of sexual assault. We know that depending on the sexual assault, it's trafficking because there's a lot of adults now that look back and they say, "Oh, I was trafficked. I didn't know that." Based on federal law and based on what trafficking actually is in terms of the definition, many people were exploited in those repeated rape situations because they were a child and other people were all involved in something of value exchanged hands like money or drugs. And, you know, I spoke to a woman the other day that says, I was trafficked and I didn't find out until I was an adult because for the years that my uncle and my dad trafficked me with other people, they shared me around and got paid for it. And so I didn't know that was human trafficking. I just thought I was just a rape victim. And so, but for every one child, it affects our gross national product and our tax dollars by a few hundred thousand for one child in a committed program, Department of Juvenile Justice, which could be someone obviously always that's in trauma. And so to provide that care not only builds strong community and helps our nation, they're coming out of that cycle of trauma.
Mhm.
And so they're becoming a productive member of their family first, their community, and then the nation as a whole. And if we look at the numbers of how many children, if we think that 1 in 4 girls in the United States is a victim of rape, 1 in 5 on a college campus, 1 in 6 boys, we're talking minors, then we're looking at the idea that 25% of the all American girls a victim of rape. And if you look at the trauma related to that, if it's undealt with because we're throwing it under the bus, I'm not going to tell, most girls don't. I'm not going to deal with it. People are like, Baha, you're such a victim. No, you're not a victim in life. You're a victim of a crime, and you cannot become a survivor fully if you don't know what you survived. If you don't think you're a victim, what did you survive? You're not a victim, but you were a victim of a crime, and therefore someone needs to be prosecuted. And it
Mhm.
wasn't your fault. You're blameless. And so I love what you said about that earlier. I love options court. I love your passion for it. You're doing what you're doing as a clinician. You probably would have been an incredible attorney, obviously, or even a judge.
The
Um,
judges tell me that all the time. You should have been a judge. I'm like, oh gosh,
no doubt. There's no doubt. What,
that's funny.
I know we have like 5 more minutes, but give me just something and our listeners kind of an idea in our conversation about your fear if organizations like ours were to go away because they were underfunded. And not only that, but the beauty with more funding of how the expanse of what we do and the success of what we do. Because as you tell me always in reports, people are happy because we show up and we show up for children that people don't show up for at all.
No,
Tell me a little bit about all of that.
I mean, that's a very scary thought. I guess the first word that comes to my mind as a general statement, taking individuals out of it, is what is our future going to be? What are our women? Like you just said, it's 1 out of 4. If we don't, if our organizations like us stop getting funding and aren't able to provide the services that we provide, who steps in and stops this? Because it's not the courts, it's not the attorneys, it's not the case managers, it's not probation officers. Who gives these youth a voice? um,
You partner with them, but
well,
every
we
piece
definitely
needed.
partner with them, right,
Mm,
100%. But that's not their job, and their job is it's that, and they have supervisors and that's not what their job is. Um,
mm, mm.
so if we're not there to give a voice, if we're not there to empower, if we're not there to stop the cycle, because it's obviously many times intergenerational, um, what does our future look like? Just not just I mean, just as a state, as a country.
Mhm.
Um, this is gonna continue to increase. This is gonna continue to multiply. And I'm very concerned about that. Obviously, I'm very concerned. We work with youth, but that is multiplying. It is when we work with youth and we help them in their journey of healing. Um, they are healing and they're spreading it, not just within their family, but within
Mhm.
their families, within their friends. When we help one, that multiplies.
Yeah,
So if if we're not able to do that, I mean, that's a very, very, very scary thought. But yeah,
I agree.
something you said earlier was it takes a long time to realize that you're even a victim, right? And that's not something we even um, talk to some about with a youth for sometimes many, many months, and we just build that relationship, that consistency. And
Well, our
you
motto
know,
kinda stipulates by the 7th conversation, we are planting seeds of always saying, "This was never your fault," right?
right,
We
right,
are always reiterating from the point where we know the
of
facts, it
course,
wasn't your
right,
fault.
right, right.
But there's this sort of undulating process of allowing them to unfold, and one of these conversations a couple years ago led to a sting operation that rescued 200 victims of child porn because they didn't really believe the teen or the youth had more to share. When she came into our care within a couple of weeks, she revealed where the traffickers were, and 4 traffickers went to prison because of our work with her, because of the power of listening, as you spoke about earlier.
Power,
Just
listening,
listen.
allowing their voice to be heard. And
Mhm,
they don't always get what they ask for, but just in our last court, options court, the judge asked, "What do you like about options court?" And they said, "It's a safe space where I can speak and be heard and be empowered and empower." So what we're seeing now develop
mm.
is that initially it
Let's
was
repeat
just
that.
the
A
adults
safe space where I can be heard,
be
where I can
heard,
speak and be heard. Mhm,
not judged. Um, but what we're seeing now develop is they're empowering each other, which is, this
mhm,
community being
mhm,
formed. Like when we have one struggling, one empowers. It's not just the adults empowering anymore. It's
mhm.
you're okay, you got this, focus on this. And it's so
Yeah,
you see, that's what I was talking about. It's like it's multiplying, it's
yeah,
they're spreading, they're being, mentors in their capacity. And it's
and that's
such
a
a
part of
beautiful
healing
thing.
because
And
that's
that's
like
a part
that.
of healing. Yes,
And
that's a
because
part.
at the spectrum of the ego, the spectrum of the ego is the idea that if you're really narcissistic and those people, you're focused on self. If you're really broken, you're also focused on self. It's because this happened to me, and it's about me, and I'm hurting, and one of the ways I healed was to understand what I went through, but to take my mind and my focus off the pain of that, so I could. It's almost akin to what you said. If you were to focus on the pain that every victim is in, then you can't provide the care to them.
Mm,
What gives you oxygen is seeing where they're going to go. What gives you
yes.
oxygen is a hope of how they're going to heal. What gives you
Mhm.
option is they may not have their identity now, but they're going to discover it over time because I'm going to help them. What gives you option is it knowing that they're safe out of bodily, now we have to get them out of the bondage in their mind. What gives you hope is that now the journey has begun. And that's, I think,
Exactly.
what's powerful about not being able to let things buffet and hit the mind, to kind of
Mhm.
avoid, compassion fatigue and things like that. I think,
That feeling that you just transmitted to me right now is that empowerment. That's what it's almost a high. It's like, journey has been long, but you know what that journey has made you? You're so resilient. That's a consistent across the board with the youth. They haven't lived what they've lived through without being resilient. I mean, it's either made them or I mean, they're resilient. So this is our future. If we can turn that pain and that
Mhm.
trauma to healing with resiliency,
Yeah,
the sky's the limit. You know,
absolutely.
our youth aren't weak. The youth that we get referrals on aren't weak. It can't be, right? I mean, you can't
No,
have lived what you lived
actually,
through.
you look at, next time we can
Mhm.
talk about case study scores, but EQ, AQ, and IQ is someone's intelligent quotient, someone's emotional quotient, and adaptability quotient. And there's this propensity that sometimes you come out of trauma, you are foggy brain because you've been
Mhm.
beaten and traumatized, and so your neurotransmitters are mixed up. You're in pain. But once you get out of that, you discover your IQ, you discover intelligence. You do because of what you just said. You have a high EQ. You may not realize it, but your emotional quotient is higher. You know how to balance your emotions because you had to not cry at certain moments.
Mhm.
And then your AQ, which these are the things you need to be successful in the world today, is high. Your ability to adapt because you had to adapt to new areas, new people, new territories, environments, new situations, a totally just demonstrative change in ethnicities and people and culture and places. You've had to adapt in a traumatized situation in order to survive. And
Right.
so, how those that says a lot about a young person and what their giftings really are, and I think that's what's so powerful about what we do at MTL, um, and More to Living by More to Life is that we kind of highlight that beauty
Mhm.
in who you really are and what your successes are, and if you ran away 50 times before or 20 times, and then this how you measure success, now you only ran away 2, oh, you're succeeding, we're not mad. We're not judging you. You're doing
Mm.
really great. And matter of fact, we're gonna high five.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and
matter
and
of
and
fact.
you left, but you stayed in touch.
So
Um,
that's our
and we're
future.
able to rescue you. Yeah,
That's our future. That's our future. We have
yeah,
gift of interacting daily with resilient youth
yeah,
that's not common, but life has taught them to be resilient. And if we
yeah,
can work through the trauma and empower,
yeah,
wow, these are our
yeah,
leaders. This is our future.
no doubt.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, this has been an incredible conversation, and I think, Tenille Valdivia is just an extraordinary human being, a powerful advocate for youth, an incredible team member. And I'm so excited that she's on the team. And I think that, if you have any questions about our organization, please go to moretoo or our new public facing name, moretoliving.org, to learn more. We have a new website coming, but part of the new website is already up. We're expanding our model. Our next conversation is going to talk about the sting operations. Recently, we've been able to partner with federal marshals and rescue 122 youth, many victims of exploitation. In addition to another 60 last year, we have Operation Dragon Eye and Operation Home for the Holidays and other sting operations. And the work we do is extraordinary. But when you support us, if you donate, you do it for the team, you do it for the victim, and you do it to prevent victims. It is the entire ecosystem of support, as Tenille beautifully said earlier. And so this was our very first MTL sort of conversational table talk. And I was so glad that Tenille said yes to do this with us. And so thank you. And we hope that you just plug into our website, and then we'll see you next time. Have an incredible day. And remember, Sexual exploitation is camouflaged in a highly sexualized society. There's a
Mhm,
beauty of romance and relationships, but no
mhm,
child, no girl, no boy, no man or woman should be violated.
mhm. Thank you for having me. This has been great. Thank
Yeah.
you.